Hi everybody, this is Tiffany. I recently posted some pictures in the Zindee group of some acrylic keychains I did using print and cut with photos. I had a number of questions about how I did it, so I just wanted to record a short tutorial. I'm not going to follow all the way through on cutting with my Cricut, but at least you'll be able to see the process in Design Space and you should be able to get it from there. I'm using a Cricut Explore Air 2 machine, so I don't have access to a Silhouette or familiarity with their software. Hopefully by seeing what I'm doing in Design Space, Silhouette users will also be able to translate that to what they use. So in Design Space, there's two things I'm going to need. I'm going to need my download file that we get in our emails when we order blanks, and I'm also going to need the photo that I'd like to use located on my computer so that I can upload it into Design Space. Whatever photo you want to use, you want to make sure it's a higher resolution. Otherwise, you might not be happy with the quality when it prints. So it's better to have a higher resolution and size it down than to have something too small that ends up blurry or pixelated when you print. For the sake of time, I already have my blank and my photo ready, so I'm going to go into my upload and retrieve it. Today I'm going to do the 2-inch circle and this photo here. I'm going to insert the images. This photo is a very high resolution, so when it comes in, it's going to take a few extra seconds and it's going to be incredibly large. In this case, it's 18 inches wide by 27 inches tall. And obviously that is much larger than we need it. So I'm going to size the height down. I'm just going to pick something smaller just to get it more manageable. In this case, I made a 4-inch height. Since I'm using a 2-inch circle, the width is probably pretty good because I don't want less than the circle or you're going to have white edges. So here I'm going to get my photo out of the way and bring my circle blanks up. As usual with Zindee blanks, we have a black that takes it all the way to the edge, and then we have a smaller inset shape that leaves a lip around the edge. If you're using epoxy or resin, generally you want the inset so that there is a lip there that the epoxy or resin can adhere to keep the photo from peeling up later. So I'm going to delete the black circle. We don't need it anyway. And then I'm going to bring my photo back over, and I'm going to place the circle over the photo. If when you get started you find that your picture is on top, you just want to come up here to Arrange and Send to Front so that your shape is on top. This part you kind of have to eyeball it a little bit. So I'm going to take my shape and put it just over his face there. And then I need to select the shape and the photo both and slice. Keep in mind you can only slice 2 items. So if you have your circle and your photo selected and slice is not lit up, that means you have more than 2 items selected. You just have to look and figure out whether you need to group or weld something, or whether maybe you still have that other circle there and you don't need it, but you can only slice 2 objects at a time. So I'm going to click Slice, and then I'm going to remove my blue circle and the excess photo. And that's what we have left. This is the part where you have to eyeball it a little bit, and if you're not happy with what's sliced, you can't really weld them back together very well. You can try, but generally, even if you have those lined up right, and then you try to weld, you're still going to see a little bit of a white line. Well, in that case, you just make more of a mess. So to fix that, if you're not happy with the placement of your slice, you're going to have to come in, get your photo, and do it again. There's really no way around that. So it's just a little bit of trial and error there. So I'm just going to take a quick second and size this back down and do it again. So in this case, my circle is behind my picture, and again, I'm just going to Arrange, Send to Front. And I might size it down just a little bit. Design Space is being a little glitchy, don't mind them. All right, place my circle over, select both, slice. So I'm happy with that. The next step is to make it. And I don't have my machine connected right now, so I can't go all the way through the process, but I'll show you some settings that are happening here. Typically, I do print and cut photos on one of two materials, either glossy photo paper. In my case, because I have a Canon Pixma printer, I find that the Canon photo paper works best. I've tried other brands and just haven't been as happy with it. So you'll have to play around and see what your printer likes best. Or I also often use Starcraft Printable Adhesive Vinyl because it's a matte vinyl, but it also is basically sticker paper, a thicker sticker paper. So that makes it very easy to apply to the acrylic at that point. If you're not familiar with print and cut on Cricut, anything you print and cut is going to have this black box around the edges. That is what the machine uses as a guide to find its bearings when it's time to cut. If you're using a sheet of paper that maybe you've already done some projects on, just like traditional vinyl cutting, you can move your project around. So if you're using an 8.5 by 11 sheet of adhesive vinyl and you've already done some projects, so maybe you have the bottom half of the page available, you can move it accordingly to get the most usage out of your paper. So I'm just going to leave it up here in this corner, and then I'm going to continue. One other word of advice on the Starcraft adhesive vinyl: if you use this upper portion and then want to save it, instead of cutting off the whole sheet, just peel off the vinyl and cut that off. Leave the backing, because that way your printer will still recognize an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper, and you won't be trying to feed pieces through your printer. So if that makes sense, say you've already peeled this off, you've done your project, and now you've got a random black box sitting there, peel all of this off and just take scissors and cut that vinyl off, leaving the backing so that you still appear to have a full sheet of paper when it's time to feed it through your printer. Hopefully that makes sense. So I'm going to continue. If I had already printed and then somehow Design Space froze or something, there was a hiccup somewhere, I could print and then come back to this place and click I've already printed, and it's going to continue with the process. It's going to ask you what material you're cutting, what pressure, all of those things you're used to seeing if you keep your machine set to custom. But since my machine's not connected, I can't really show that to you right now. What I will show you is at this step, you're going to do send to printer. And there are some settings here that you want to make sure to use. There are a lot of projects with print and cut where you want your bleed turned off, but this isn't one of them. I would recommend you leave bleed on because it's going to give you a little bit of a lip to cut, and that way you don't have a white edge around your photo keychain. And then I like to use the system dialog, and I'll show you why here in a second. When I click print, using the system dialog is going to give me my traditional printer window that I'm used to seeing when I print anywhere else. This is my opportunity to go into preferences and make sure that it prints to the best of its ability so that I get a nice crisp photo to use. Some printers don't have this many settings. Like I said, I'm using a Canon Pixma, I think it's a 9020 or a 9200, I don't remember, but it's a really good photo printer, and it gives me these photo options. Some printers aren't going to have this. They may not have anything, or they might have draft, standard, and best. Whatever your printer has, I would recommend always trying to use the best setting it offers. So on my Canon Pixma, I can choose photo printing. I can come down here. If I'm using glossy photo paper, I can choose that. If I'm using the Starcraft Printable Vinyl, I can choose matte photo paper. I can tell it I want high quality. If it's the 4x6 glossy photo paper, I can do that, or I can change it to the Starcraft 8.5 by 11 sheets. And I like to put mine in the rear tray just so I can isolate it by itself. It doesn't get mixed in with the paper. And then I'd click OK and print. And it's going to come out of my printer looking like this sheet you see on the mat. From there, the next thing to do is really just place it on your mat. Even though the mat here shows 8.5 by 11, even a 4x6 photo would fit in that piece of photo paper would fit in that upper corner. So that is where you do your photo. The main thing to do is simply it's slicing, taking your photo, placing your shape over it, and slicing. If when you do your print and cut, you send it through the printer and it is just completely off, it's not where it needs to be, make sure to go up to your settings and follow the calibration instructions. Sometimes you need to calibrate in order for print and cut to work the best. Hopefully you found this helpful, and if I can answer any questions, I will do my best. Otherwise, happy crafting!